Perfect.
All right.
How do you want to do this?
I'll kick off.
You take us away.
Michael English.
Hello.
Welcome to ABM Answers.
Thank you, sir.
So, Mike, my good friend, obviously I'm very excited for this. This is only the second time we've actually been in a studio. Clearly, we're getting somewhere. But what I'm also more excited about is we met travelling a few years ago. And I've only known you as the man that can nail Mambo number 5 on the karaoke and has an above average golf swing. But turns out...
I'll take that.
Yeah, but turns out a few years later, people tell me you are the man to go to for billboards around London.
I think the best way to explain it is whenever my mates ask what I do is I do billboards and that's it. But there's a lot more to it which we'll go through in a bit. So yeah, what do you want to know?
Well, straight to the point. Well, the first thing I want to know is also another reason why I'm excited by this. I interviewed Eli Rubel, who is like a B2B juggernaut powerhouse. He's just done the rebrand for Exit 5 and our B2B, which again are two big B2B marketing businesses on themselves. And when I asked him, is it what would you do with unlimited budget? The first thing he said was, I would probably buy billboards all around the key stakeholders' house who I wanted to target and slap on a message that maybe didn't read out, hey Mike, but it was just so blatantly obvious that it was about them, to somewhat like brainwash them. And I thought that was genius. And I didn't actually think I would be interviewing anyone that knew anything about billboards. So just to keep it super short, I don't know if you can give a binary answer, is that even possible?
It is, yeah. We used to do one back in the day. So one of the campaigns I worked on was for Wren Kitchens. And Wren Kitchens, they were running a sale and it was cheaper than Wix. And one of the briefs we got was, right, how do we convince shoppers in this sort of market that, how do we let them know that they're cheaper than Wix? So what we did, we hired out billboards on wheels. This is about 10 years ago, and we parked Wren billboards right in front of the Wix main entrance store saying, we are cheaper than Wix. So everyone walking in would be like, nope, turn around and come back. And it was brilliant because A, it did the job, it was in the perfect location, but also it annoyed a lot of Wix, sort of the store managers and stuff. They were coming out, telling the vans to bugger off and like drive away. But you can do that, and the main reason because that is just get all the key stakeholders to see it. If a client books a campaign and they don't see their own campaign, straight away they're like, it's not successful. So the worst thing you can get in the world is when a client spends a lot of money on a billboard campaign and they can't see it and they're calling you up, oh, I can't see this billboard, can't see this billboard. It's like, well, no, you're planning for where your audience is. So yeah, so long story short, yes, it is possible and it's a brilliant way of doing it.
That's taken this, I haven't even prepared, I've prepared some questions. I didn't prepare any around portable billboards, didn't even think about that angle, so maybe we'll cover that. Let's start then with, like, what's a common misconception when it comes to billboards, do you think?
I'd say there's two things. So one of them is price. I think everyone thinks it's really expensive to be on billboards, but let's say you take a classic, what you consider a billboard, so a paper and paste, old school, that's about £300 for 2 weeks. So it's actually quite cost effective when you think about it, because it stays up for 2 weeks, it's your ad, people will see it on an average of 2 to 3 times on their journey to and from work, but then it can go up to about, I think, the likes of £250,000. So when you're looking at the likes of Piccadilly Lights, the IMAX, the big shiny stuff, Times Square, like the Sphere, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands.
What's the Sphere?
The Las Vegas Sphere.
Oh, that one.
So
Nice.
I saw the sort of sales deck from that when it first started, and you're looking at a good few $100,000 just for sort of a day or two,
right?
Because it's all about being a stunt. But a lot of it's now with advertising as well. It lives on different channels. So, for instance, if you buy the Las Vegas Sphere or you're doing a 3D campaign on Piccadilly Lights, a lot of people share it on social media and get a lot of incremental reach there. So if your campaign goes viral and you're sharing it for millions and millions of people on social media, you've made so much free media value out of that, and it's a really effective way to do those campaigns.
That is what I didn't realise, like the barrier to entry was so low, actually, because you're right, if you slap on like the social element as well of taking photos, that is genius.
But with the price as well, it's not just price, it's like the process. So people think it's quite expensive, also quite complicated and difficult to get on a billboard. But I think like you take us shameless sales plug here, but we've got 50 screens in London. We're called London Lights. We've got 50 screens in London.
Shout out London.
And like, for example, literally, you can give me a call and you can figure out exactly where you want your billboard. Right, I want a digital screen on the side of the road in Tooting. How much does it cost? Right, here's X amount of money. Sign that off, and then all you need to do is supply me with a JPEG of a particular resolution, and I could upload it within 10 minutes and it will be live on the streets in London. So it is that quick and that simple. But this is when you start talking about the digital side of things as well. So sort of a bit of a out of home billboard 101 really, but back in the day you used to have, it's all paper billboards, so old school paper and paste.
Well, I'm a bit disappointed you're not out there.
I did it when I was like, I think I was about 12 or 13. Like, my dad's been in the industry for about 40 years now. He'll hate me saying that. But back, I think my work experience when I was like 12 or 13, I was up the ladder, hard helmet on, high vis, all health and safety, and then placing the billboards myself, or like rolling, because you have to collate all the posters. So rolling it all, and it's sort of like a bit of graft back in the day, lots of earning your stripes. But yeah, so that was sort of the olden days. That does play a key part of advertising, because that's like the bread and butter. And you look in any sort of villages and towns in the UK, and they'll still have paper bus shelters. Buses, for example, is old school as well. But the way the industry is changing, it's going to more of a digital world. So I think 60% of all out-of-home UK revenue is digital out-of-home, which is digital screens. So you will look at, let's take Manchester city centre as an example. You walk through the city centre, it's all digital screens now. You go through the shopping mall and the Arndales and the Trafford centres, all converted to digital. The airports are all digital, because what media owners like myself, people who sell the advertising space, what we've understood is that you can drive more revenue, but also as well, it really contributes to the local, the councils, the community. Certain amount of money per pound for out of home revenue goes towards back to the local councils, regenerating local spaces. For example, there's one of them called Clear Channel. They produce bus shelters with living roofs on top, so bees can repollinate, etc. So it's a big push to get these councils and everyone to sort of convert their sites to digital. But also it means it's easier for advertisers to get on. Okay, I can talk about this for hours, but nowadays I could, from a press of a button, go on a map, find a digital screen in New York and buy it and be live on it within half an hour. So it is that easy to be on billboards and to be on screens.
Dude, that is insane. You've completely knocked me off track in a good way, because I didn't even know this stuff was possible. Also, there's companies that hold really responsible, socially responsible and stuff. Like, you're not just paying Zuck at Facebook lots and lots of money, or like that's where all your spend goes. It is like kind of going back into the council to some degree. Yeah,
a lot of it does, and I think, don't quote me on this one, but I think pound for pound, out of home advertising is produces the least amount of carbon emissions. And I think if you look at, compared to the likes of digital, with the amount of sort of tech they use, the amount of emissions they're using, pound for pound out of home is a lot more sustainable. And there's a lot of, it's like a similar thing with AI. Sustainability and AI are always on sort of every conference talk, or it's on everyone's lips. But it is important. But we made steps. So for example, with our screens, we switched them off from midnight to 6 a.m. to save energy. We run on completely green renewable energy. One of our screens was, I think, the first completely carbon neutral screen build, as an example. If you're printing banners on the side of buildings, they'll be made from recyclable materials. And then when they've been taken down, that gets recycled. And yeah, there's a lot of steps being made. And again, compared like for like against other channels, it is a fairly sustainable channel.
So on that, well, let's wrap that up. Do clients, like, so I wouldn't have, not that I'm not socially responsible, but like that's not something that would factor into my equation of like being kind of like eco-friendly necessarily. That wouldn't drive a purchasing decision for me. But like, do you see clients like come, because obviously I'm a small little company, I'm not like a big enterprise that would probably advertise on a billboard necessarily. Like, is that a driving factor for a lot of companies? So say someone's out there looking to advertise on billboards and kind of want to justify it to their boss or their manager, because we'll get to like attribution and like ROI later, just not the thing, I'm sure it's fine. But like, is that a purchasing factor?
I wouldn't say it loses people business.
Yeah.
So what I mean by this is you'll have the larger companies of this world who have got the sustainability creds and they've got certain targets they need to meet. They will challenge not just out of home but all channels, and they want sustainability creds. And again, once you're looking at the likes of the Metas of this world and the larger digital companies, they've got that completely. So
Yeah.
when it comes to sort of down, you go per channel, then you go sort of per what we are media owner. And as I said, it's whether you need to sort of demonstrate that you're doing the right thing in terms of saving as much emission as possible, or you're as sustainable as possible. But does it lose you out in business? No, I think at the moment it is, as long as you're thinking about it, because a lot of the responsibility sits with the client and or the media agency. So a lot of the bigger clients in the country or the world will have media agencies planning and buying their TV campaigns, their digital campaigns, audio and out of home. And it will be down to the media agency to actually go, right, are we being sustainable? Are we offsetting it? Are we being carbon neutral? So it's more of an overall factor. But once you get down to sort of our stage, towards the channel, towards the people selling it, again, I don't think we or most people lose out on any business because of their sustainability creds.
Oh, just interesting to cover. So there are a few things that you mentioned on there. So like targeting is a good one. But a little side question, like preempting this, is, and part of the reason I haven't had anyone on talking about billboards is because I would have no idea or where or how to go. Whereas it's not like a Facebook campaign where anyone can kind of just like get access, log on, and I'm going to run an ad. Like, how does that even work? Does your business like, are you a media company? Are you a real estate company? Do you buy the billboards? Do those billboards come up for renewal and then other companies bid to have those billboards? Can I slap on a billboard on the side of my house? And then two, the final part of that is like the targeting aspect of it. You mentioned that a client will come to you and say, hey, we want to target, and then you'll go, here are our billboards. Do you ever help in that pre-service where it's like, we will find out where your audience is living and then find you billboards, or do people come to you and say, I should have shortened this question.
you just asked what my last 10 years have been like. Like literally, my last 10 years of my career, what have you been doing, basically? So, right, where do we begin?
All right, how long have we got?
Yeah. So with the development side of things, so you can't just slap on a billboard anywhere.
Right.
You used to be able to sort of back in the day and get away with it, but I think what the main thing that happens now is you'll have, let's say you own a bit of land, you own a building, and you will get approached, or you can get approached by sort of developers. We have developers within our company, and it's sort of the old thing of knocking on doors, right, can we put a screen here?
Yep.
Here's a rental agreement, go through the terms, and then we will generate revenue on the back of that. Another way, which is quite popular at the moment, the way we a lot of stuff we do is you'll have old billboard sites, so historic billboard sites, and you can again approach the particular landlord of that private area or that private land and say to them, look, if we convert this to digital, we can generate X amount more revenue from you and get rent. So some of it's done by councils as well. So say you'll win a Manchester City Council contract. TfL is a good example. That happened recently. I think that was a 5-year tender essentially, and you win the rights to generate revenue and do the sales for all the TfL estates. That's all the London Underground posters, all these sort of digital bus shelters in London. So that's a massive one, yeah. But so yeah, once you've got that sort of developed, let's say we've got 50 screens at the moment, and you don't want to plonk screens anywhere. So it's sort of, when you're thinking, right, where do I want to put an out-of-home screen or a billboard, you got to think about what's in the landscape already. So for example, if you drive up and down the A4, M4 towards Heathrow, you will see digital billboard, because there's a lot of audience there. Millions of people fly past it every single day, and there's a rich audience there. So when you're a media buyer, and I'll go into sort of how you plan it in a second, you're looking at it and going, there's millions of people, great. And when you're doing a media plan, the last thing you put on a media plan, what we used to do is, how much of your audience you cover? What's your audience? So let's say it's ABC1, you're trying to target a fairly affluent audience, but that's the majority sort of the UK. Right, how much of your audience are you covering with this media plan? How many times, the frequency, and how many impacts, and how many eyeballs has been on your campaign? And that is the metric which clients mainly will look at and go, right, tick, approved, tick, money signed off. How to actually target someone on the flip side of it, on planning a campaign, it can be done two ways. A client could have their own data. So for example, if you're Deliveroo and you've got particular delivery zones, you might give a media brief to your agency and go, I want to advertise within a 15-minute drive time of these particular postcodes. Or you could be someone like the gym group, as an example. I've got a new gym opening in Tooting. Here's a certain budget. I want to target everyone within a 50-minute drive time of this Tooting gym. Great. That's quite an easy one because the agency or the media owner, myself, we've all got mapping tools. There's tools where it has the majority of every single billboard and screen in the country. You can plug it in and you can start going, right, X, Y, Z, on a map. The other way is through data. So again, it could be a combination of first-party data, third-party data, where the clients could give a bit of guidance into where they want their campaign. So London strong for us, Manchester, Leeds, Glasgow, great. Now you find where our audience is, and you can do that a load of different ways. You can use things like Experiential data. You could use London Underground Wi-Fi data, TAPS data. You could look at mobile data, so SDK on your phone. Exactly, you can track people's, not sort of Big Brother style, but you can look at where they reside, their movements through the underground, and start planning posters along with that. So there was one back in the day, sort of I'd say the creepiest one that was done was Netflix. I can't remember what show it was. It might have been something like Black Mirror, Bandersnatch or something. And the way they did it, they had a starting point on the tube, and it would give a different story for different journeys on the tube, and it would track people where they were going through. It was brilliant. It was genius. But you can get very granular with targeting in out of home, and you'll hear buzzwords, people in the industry, programmatic. So if you're doing programmatic digital out of home, you run that on the channel alongside your programmatic display, your CTV, your YouTubes of this world. But the problem is you can start going to directive, and it's not a one-to-one channel.
Right.
Out of home is brilliant because it reaches 98% of the UK audience. And the thing about out of home, which is great, is its broadcast reach. It's what we sort of call it's the bottom of the funnel, top of the funnel, the pyramid, where you've got TV and out of home working together, delivering your national reach. It's like you need a high frequency. So my biggest thing when I was younger is I always used to see people like Coca-Cola on bus shelters, and you see it time and time again. You generate the trust, you build up the trust, you get the frequency. So if you start being too directive and paying more just to reach one or two people, for example, with data, and you're too targeted, then you're going against what out of home's good at. So data is really good, but also as well, which is really key, is you need local knowledge. So what I mean by this is, if you're advertising with TV or advertising with digital on social media, for example, you're either viewing it on your phone or you're viewing it on TV. That's it. You'll have different formats within that. Within Facebook, you got like carousels or whatever, but with out of home, you're consuming it in such a different way. You're either sort of on the move. Like, for example, if you're flying past a site at 40 miles per hour on the M4, you are taking that information a lot differently to when you're standing at a platform at a rail station.
That's a good point.
Because
your metrics are not how many cars have you made crash from having an engaging billboard. That would make sense.
Exactly that. So you look at, the best example is Jack Daniels. So Jack Daniels, they do tube advertising. We call it a 16 sheet. So it's a portrait poster on the wall whilst you wait for the tube. And they all have a couple of paragraphs of text about the history of Jack Daniels, the brand, and you sort of get really invested about what the brand stands for and history. That's what they do brilliantly. You stick that on the A4, A3 or North Circular, you're not going to be able to read that. So again, it's really important for clients and agencies to understand what they're buying. So you can only do so much behind a laptop. So again, I could run all this data, run all this mapping, and it will spit out a list of 1,000 billboards and 1,000 digital screens. You can't just go, right, what's the best thing the data said? Because I could buy a massive billboard and spend £10,000 on it, and there's a tree in front of it, or you're driving past it too fast, or the screen quality isn't good enough. You've got to understand, and this is sort of a dying art really, because my first job when I was about 18 was I was sort of a London buyer, so it was very much right. Okay, B&Q are opening a new store in Wandsworth. I've got a £5,000 budget. What are the best billboards? And my job used to be right. 118 Battersea Park Road. It is the best for targeting drivers going down that road because it catches people from the south. And it was that sort of intricate local knowledge you needed to actually meet the brief. And I think that's a real dying art because these sort of field local buyers aren't around anymore. And it's because of the amount of data there is. And you said about you can't just sort of go in and log in and buy a billboard, but you can. Like there's companies out there where you can literally, as I said, I could click on a street in New York and go, I want to buy this, and it will be live. So the technology is there now, but as I said, people got to remember what a billboard is brilliant about. And one of the best metrics for me, regardless of if it increases brand awareness or brand consideration, they are very obviously key metrics, and you need to turn the dial for a client to come back. But to see a client's face of standing underneath their massive screen or their massive billboard, and you take them out, we call it site tours, so you take a client out, see their work live in situ. So they could have spent months or even years working on this campaign, working on the creative, and to see their faces when they're looking at it and going, this is amazing. That is honestly a really underrated metric. And yeah, I think that needs to happen a bit more of clients getting out there and seeing their life in real world, because there's nothing like the joy of seeing sort of clients on a billboard, especially people that are not really in the industry, because I've done it before with special messages, or I've done it for my friend once, and it was a happy 18th birthday for my mate's sister, and their face like, oh my god, I'm on a billboard. And it's that sort of metric. I'm like, yeah, that is a cool thing.
So that's really, really interesting. So it would really work well for like customer marketing then. So like you've got an account, you've taken them out for dinner, and said this account's hundreds of thousands, if not millions to you. That would be like a really smart. So maybe they should be optimizing their restaurant or bar choices based on like where the coolest billboards are for you.
Yeah.
But also you make a good point about. I don't think there's much knowledge out. Well, there might be. There probably is. There is always somewhere. But like, if I want to figure out how to run a Facebook ad or something, I could figure that out on YouTube, or there's a lot of resources out there to help you figure that out. But what you mentioned, you're almost like the black cabs of London. It's like they're the cabbies with the knowledge, but also understand what makes people tick, which is good. One thing, even though you told me not to go down, well, you didn't tell me, but you just referenced that that's not the ideal way to do it. I heard that, this was like years ago now, from a very smart person, that Google Maps, like they can tell traffic jams by basically, the phones. Like if there's a lot of phones, there's probably a traffic jam there. And it's kind of that physical play with the digital play. And is it possible, because you mentioned it's very quick to, just slap an ad up real quick. If I would, and you mentioned the tube, the underground example, but if I'm walking past, like, say my phone knows I'm hungry or I eat at this certain time, and I'm walking past the KFC, is there a chance that one day we're going to get a, hey Sam, come in and get this bargain bucket? I'm really out to myself. I love KFC, are we there yet, or is that ever going to happen?
We are not there yet. So, have you seen the Minority Report, the film?
No. Tom
Cruise. It is. I think it's like early 2000s, and it literally had that. So he was walking through a shopping centre,
right? And
he was getting personalised ad. I can't remember what his name
maybe
was.
That's where he got the idea.
Yeah.
He sold me, hasn't he?
But this was about 20 years ago now, but. There was an example, I think it was in an airport, where a particular person, if you stood underneath the departures board, I can't remember where this was, but if you stood underneath the departure board, you were getting personalised ads. So you were seeing one ad, and the person next to you was seeing a different ad. Don't know how that would work, but we will be there soon, I think, with everything going on with VR, AR as well, where you're driving, especially in your car, in-car entertainment, and I think the idea will be you drive past a billboard, and one day maybe the billboard will come to life, or it will start giving you a personalised recommendation. So you drive past Heineken, for example.
Yeah.
Oh, I need Heineken to put in my shopping basket as an example. But completely personalised, no, we're a bit far off that, because that is a bit Big Brotherish and a bit creepy. But all this again with there's so many. You talk about the traffic jam example. One of the example ideas we had a few years ago was they wanted to serve different ads depending on how much traffic there were. So again, you take Euston Underpass as an example, central London. You've got a massive screen in front of you. We had an idea of serving longer copy ad with more messaging when the traffic was below 10 miles per hour. Then you service another one when it's 10 to 30 miles per hour, and then when it's really fast-paced traffic, no messaging, complete brand, and that's been around for a while now, so you've got to pay more for it. But you can do some the things we get from briefs. I've had briefs in the past where, okay, I want a billboard that's on fire, I want a burning billboard, or I want to send a billboard to space. Or honestly, there's no brief which is stupid. You've got to deal with a certain amount of restrictions. So for example, if you're targeting a vehicular audience and you're on sort of a main road, you can't really have movement or you can't have animation on the billboard because it will distract drivers. Right. So I think there's only a couple in central London which you can have. So if you're in a shopping mall or you're in a rail station, yep, you can have animation because it's pedestrianised. So, but again, things like 3D have come into play the last few years, last 5 or 6 years, where you can have 3D anamorphic on different screens. Audio is not really one, so you can't really have audio and out of home playing alongside each other. But yeah, the technology is there. But again, a lot of it, me personally, I think a lot of it is some of it's quite a fad sometimes. So you take 3D as an example. Yes, it's brilliant, but once 2, 3, 4, 5 people have done it and shared it on social media, it's not cool anymore.
But then I guess that's the benefit of being more innovative and being first.
You've
got to take some risks.
So yeah, you'll hear the words, every single awards do I've been to in the past, this is a media first or this is a world first. It's like it's not really.
I hate that stuff. I'm not going to go down that route. We'll keep it positive. Right, conscious of time, and I'm honestly loving this, but we've got to get going. ROI, right? Marketers' biggest problem is to do like. Here's me speaking on behalf of all marketers out there. I just know it's a very big problem, like attribution, and that's why people love digital ads, right? They can literally track cost per click, all this sort of stuff. We've mentioned that billboards are more top of funnel, work beautifully, but also they can work bottom of the funnel. You know, if you personalise and you build one for them. But how do you report on the ROI of a billboard campaign? And you can either take it from you as like the supplier in this case, or like how a client, head of marketing, might take it to their CEO.
I'll talk through sort of what a client will receive. So when I used to work for a media agency, and you used to have to do a PCA, so a post-campaign report or post-campaign analysis, and you'd get the different investment teams of your agency presenting to the client exactly how did the campaign go. And I always had this problem where I followed the digital teams, and the digital teams, as you said, they will have 40 slides, 50 slides of analysis, insights into click-through rates, open rates, all this sort of stuff, what sort of time, everything's so detailed, and the client loved it because I think especially in today's age with the sort of wider global economics as well, people are so careful of their budgets. So they need to see exact sort of measurements and analysis going, that worked before, or that works, great, I'm going to invest more money into it. I wouldn't say out of home is risky, but it's harder to measure, and it takes more of a punt to go with. But the way we measure it is the out of home sort of currency. So with TV you've got ARB, with radio you've got Radar. It's how you measure the sort of out of home and an out of home audience. So quick history is ours is called Root, and it's 30,000 plus people, and it's an analysis and an algorithm of GPS, traffic data, visibility, dwell times, and essentially it will rank most or majority of billboards in the UK. So you could say, right, in a 2-week period, this billboard in Sheffield, how much of an AB audience sees this on a 2-week basis? How much of my audience are covering? So that's the sort of the pre-measurement aspect of it. Back into terms of ROI, the best way to do it is you can wrap it around sort of a wider campaign measurement with clients. So for example, you can look at Google site visits, site uplifts, but again, you've got to sort of siphon off, or what's the word I'm looking for? You've got to
like almost segregate.
There is a word.
Like
we'll post edit that in, but there is a word for that. You've got to whatever that word is.
Just separate.
Separate,
a correlation. There's like correlations, and you got to like.
What's the effing word?
We're running out of time here. Let's keep going.
So you've got to sort of figure out exactly what out-of-home advertising did as part of your wider budget.
Yeah.
But the best way to do it is things like do brand awareness studies or uplift studies as well. So it's usually a panel of people, and you say to them, right, have you seen this billboard before? Would you consider buying this product after seeing this billboard? So separate studies are the best way to do it.
Is there anything specific more to like B2B? Like, because obviously B2C, I can see this working amazing. But also there are some B2B clients we work with, like big like telecoms enterprise, that monitor, their marketing team monitor exactly what you're saying, which is like, how do you feel about this brand before and after? Like, so it is kind of brand sentiment, or is there, maybe not, and maybe we edit it out, I don't know, but I'm just curious, like, because we're talking about, numbers here, quantity.
So again, if you can look at, so if you're looking at sales, obviously you can look at sales, but out of home historically, most formats, it's not a short-term results driver.
Yeah.
It's long-term brand building, and this is what a lot of people forgetting these days is, to do out of home really well, you need to be covering a lot of your audience. You need to be building your brand for a long time, because out of home, where it works best is building brand essentially. So as I said, you can drive short-term sales. So for example, if you're at a Tesco or an Asda and you've got a digital screen outside, that's a point of sale screen. That is last point of purchase. And you can really use things like Nectar data or dunnhumby data to figure out exactly when you were advertising, when the uplifts were, and exactly the sales you made. Other things like econometrics as well. So again, understand exactly what hours of the day, what locations were played. But I personally, the best way I like to do it is do a bit of test and learn. So for example, if you're doing London and you're new to out-of-home advertising, just do a bit of test and learn. You want to allocate a certain budget to somewhere like South West London or Wandsworth versus another area where you sell, Suffolk as an example. Look at the difference between them. When you did advertise and when you didn't, what differences did it make to your visits to your website? What difference does it make to your sales? And then you can really start drilling down into that. But as I said, personally for best, it's long-term brand building and sort of long-term studies as well with third parties.
No, it's a good point, and there's a lot of people now, and I think brand is everything, because there are studies that have come out where I was at the Sixth Sense conference last week, and they said there, one of the speakers, that like 80 or 85% of your buyers will go to a vendor they already know, or that in the end they will select a vendor they already know. No one's going to like G2 or these big lists or Captera. I'm not saying they're not going to the G2, but it's like you got 15%. If they don't know you before they've started that buying decision, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
They're not gonna. They're unlikely to go with you. So brand is super, super important.
Well, it's perception. Again, if you're on a billboard, it gives the perception that you're a big brand. So again, you look on even smaller formats. So on the tube this morning, I saw Asana, and and someone like Canvas as well. These companies are obviously very much sort of account targeting, and they'll be going off them directly. But by being on out-of-home advertising, they'll give them this perception. I think they're a bigger brand. And again, it's all about the word of trust. You look at it, you trust it. Oh, I've seen that on a billboard before. I've seen that on that bus shelter before. They must be a big advertiser and a big player.
Well, I would agree with that, because I always see that as well. And you never know. It's like all smoke and mirrors marketing, isn't it? You never know what's behind the surface, but it's very smart. Right. 22 minutes. Whew, time is flying. We've looked at this for longer. Right. Let's say you've... well, what's the process? Give me like the methodical process of like, hey, I'm a business. I want to run a billboard campaign. Like, obviously I'm phoning Mike. Mike, help me.
So again, if you're going directly to a media owner, that's us. Yeah. That's probably the easiest way to do it. You would need to ascertain really what your budget is. So if the first question I'd ask is, when do you want to be live? Is there a particular period of time? Do you have a budget in mind? And what's your target audience? And then the way I would do it is do a bit of background history. So if there's a client I'm not aware of, then I'll do a bit of Googling, look on their website. Do they have any physical store locations? Do they have a particular audience they're targeting? I can use a bit of data to find out exactly where their audience is. So let's say it is 45 to 55-year-old males who have a personal income of over £100,000. We could plug that into our system and it can show me the profiling and the indexing of each individual of our locations to find out what works best. Bit of common sense comes into mind as well, which a lot of people forget.
That is lacking.
It is a dying art these days. But honestly, a bit of common sense, as I said, even like the Googling side of things, is just look at their brand, look at their website, where they've been from, look at their social media pages, have they got any events coming up? Once you sort of amalgamated all that information, then I do a bit of planning. So again, let's say you're quite topical at the moment, but a vape company, and we've carried a few vape companies in the past. Right, I've got a budget, I want to target near vape stores. Okay, and this sort of comes into our play here, is where you want sites in neighbourhoods. So we've got screens in the likes of Balham, Wimbledon, Chiswick, Notting Hill, in actual neighbourhoods, not necessarily on those main roads, because we want to be close to where audiences live and work most of the week. We want to be close to pubs, bars, restaurants, shops. So naturally, our sites fit. And again, part of my job as a salesperson is it's really important for me to know our products as well. So first few months of me joining London Lights, I went out there, drove around, and you've got to get used to the local neighbourhood. So I drove around the likes of Deptford, New Cross, where we've got screens. Okay, and you can start getting some insights of how people are travelling around. Is there a tube station nearby? Is there bus stops nearby? How are people travelling around our neighbourhood and essentially seeing our screen? So I'll amalgamate all that. I will then provide a site list, information on each screen. How much does it cost per 2 weeks? How much does it cost for a week? Here's the different locations.
Is it always done in 2 week increments?
It's so like out of home advertising in the UK, historically it's 2 weeks. So if you buy a billboard and you're buying a standard paper billboard, you'll be up for 2 weeks. You can do it in increments of that, 2, 4, 6, etc. You can buy it for a year, get a bit more of a discount. With digital out of home, so what we do on screens, you can buy per hour, per day, per week. People usually do it for about 2 weeks still, because it sits as part of the wider media mix. So what you usually have is you'll have the likes of TV advertising, where let's say you're a big brand, you will launch with a 60-second ad, you will then have a 30-second, 10-second pulsing throughout your particular period of time. Digital will be always on and you'll optimise in and out. Radio, you might have a 2-week burst here, 3-week burst here, whatever. And then out of home, usually it's 2-week blocks really of what's the key time for your period for your client. So once all that's done and then you go, right, here's the price, here's what you're going to get. So what we usually sell is we call it a share of voice. So your ad will be running on a 10-second slot and a 60-second loop. So 1 play per minute constantly throughout. You can do that different ways, but that's the historical way of doing it. Once that's all agreed, obviously provide the photos, all the mapping details, information of the locations. They will then go, right, happy days, sign it off.
And do you ever help with that media? Like, do you have like a creative agency in-house, or do you expect the client to come with the media and the photos that they want up?
It's a good question. At the moment, the majority of clients, if you're a bigger client, you will have a creative agency.
Right.
But a lot of clients, even with multi-million-pound budgets, will still do their creative in-house.
Right.
And we typically work with the client, and the client will then feedback the creative to us. So once it's signed off, client gets all the artwork specifications. So this is what you need to create your video or your JPEG image to. They send it back to us. We upload it, and when the campaign goes live, we provide the photos. Job done. It's quite a simple process, really. But as I said, from a selling point of view, you need to know your locations. You need to know your audiences, because I can't sell a billboard if I've never seen it in real life, because it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And so a question I always like to ask is, what are the blind spots people miss that? Obviously you're there to guide them, right? So maybe if they do it on their own, but like, what are or a better way to frame this is like, when people come to you, what is the biggest not misconception, we've covered that, but like, what hadn't they thought about, I guess?
The main thing is the creative, and I think we touched on it before, of how are people consuming that media. And this is quite pertinent with digital advertising and people testing out budgets, especially the likes of programmatic, digital out of home coming into play now, is people will take their social ads and just plaster it on any billboard, and they won't understand whether it's, as I said, on an underground station or on the main road or at an airport. So a good example is QR codes. We get a lot of requests saying,
I've got that.
Let's
talk about QR codes.
Yeah, but again, it's a bugbearer for me. Because a lot of digital out-of-home advertising is only live for 10 seconds at a time. So if I'm standing there and I'm pulling out my phone, by the time I pulled it out and got there, the ad's gone, and you got to wait another minute for it to come around. Another thing is the environment. I've seen people put QR codes on underground stations before, and this was no Wi-Fi. This was pre 4G, 5G days, but it was just like, again, and the client did it, and but you warn clients about it. You say, look, it's up to the agency or the media owner to give a bit of guidance, but then it's the client's decision at the end of the day. Again, other examples, I've seen people with rows and rows of text, or let's say it's a music festival and they've released a lineup, but it's on a tower on the M4. No one's going to be able to tell who's on it. So creative is a key thing, because you can follow this process for planning, buying, getting a plan signed off for months, and you, the client, the agency, have been working really hard to do that, and at the last minute you get supplied the creative from a different creative agency, and the creative's crap and it doesn't fit, and it's such a shame. And the main reason because of that is communication and time. What you need is all the different parties. You need the media owner, you need the client, and if they've got a creative agency, talking with each other and synchronizing and producing the best bit of work as possible. But in this day and age when everyone's time poor, sometimes it's quickly rushed, and a creative agency will just receive a list of products, a list of sites, a list of channels, and go, do some creative for this, and there's no context behind it.
Interesting. Yeah, well, they say the same with like the ads you post on X, if anyone still does that, or Facebook and TikTok or Instagram. They're all it needs to be context aware to the platform, and I guess billboards are no different. Right, I have a question. Drone light shows. I went
straight into it.
This we're going off piece now.
Yeah.
So this is my friend just invested in a company out in Arizona that does drone light shows, and I was like, this is genius, right? So I went down a rabbit hole. Do it in the UK. Turns out it's super expensive, but also there's laws around like you need to have like a certain amount of space, and I was just like, red tape. Is it red tape? Whatever.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've ever dabbled in at London Lights?
We've never dabbled in it. So drone light shows probably sits in a slightly different category to what definitely a different category what we do. It's probably more on sort of the we call it sort of guerrilla advertising, so the projections of this world. So you take the best example is probably the New Year's Eve just gone, where you had projections. I think you had maybe some drones as well, but projections on the London Eye, video projections, and that is a very different kettle of fish to what we do. But with drones, I think you got to battle permits and no-fly zones. So I think, for example, around Heathrow and Gatwick, you've got a complete no-fly zone for a certain mile radius. You've got to get permissions, and start flying a load of drones over a busy London is going to be very, very difficult. But also, again, you've got to think about where your media is living. And what I mean by that is you could do a drone show anywhere on the beach. You can go to the beach down towards Dover, for example, do a drone show and have a nice backdrop. No one's going to see it there. So you're going to spend all this money and no one's going to see it. So it's so important that your next stage of your media plan is important, which is the social media aspect of it. How do I promote this on social media? Do I have the following? Like, we get it from newer clients, for example, that, right, we've got an idea, we're going to post it all on social media with this nice video and it's going to go viral. It's like, well, you've got 1,000 followers on Instagram. It's not going to work like that. So again, this is where media and different media channels can work really nicely with each other. Good example is a few years ago, it was a BBC campaign for Dracula, and what they did is they built a special billboard. I think it was in Brixton or somewhere.
This is not where I thought any of this was going.
No, but you can build They wanted to showcase the new Dracula TV show,
Right.
and we can edit in some photos later. But they essentially put some, I think it was wooden stakes into the billboard, and essentially it was like a random load of stakes. And what happened is when the sun set and the floodlights came on, the shadow portrayed Dracula, and it was genius.
Very
It was
smart.
brilliant, and it won a load of awards. But the key thing is, it got picked up in national press, got picked up online, social media loved it, and everyone thought this was the coolest thing since sliced bread. So, and again, they would receive millions, probably tens of millions of impressions free of charge. And if you start relating that back to cost per thousands and how much you're spending in out-of-home advertising and digital advertising, you take that million incremental impressions and you put a value on it, you've got yourself hundreds of £1,000s of free media value.
Yeah.
And it's genius.
Creativity will always win.
Exactly, and people have got to be, as I said, especially with, I take this year as an example, what's going on in America and Ukraine or whatever, is people are so bit more money conscious at the moment, and they're being a bit more careful. So, but what happens with that is, for me, it's boring work. You need to take risks, and you need marketeers to be out there taking some more risks with creative. And yes, it might not have worked before, it might be this new cool idea, but they need to do it in order to create some conversation.
So I also was having a little bit of fun for this, because obviously I'm not going to let you leave, although we've got 10 minutes left, without asking what your favourite campaign was. But like, I think that interactivity is a really good, like, it's just fun to brainstorm something that's experiential, that's physical. And I was like, what could you do? It's like, you could have a security, these might be really lame from what you've seen, but like a security company, like camera company, and you walk past and they're like videoing, and it's identifying like how old you are, if you're male, female, or whatever. And then you could have like an ancestry, you know, that 23andMe. It's like, maybe you spit into the billboard, or maybe there's a little pouch and it analyzes your data and then pulls it up on like a big world map of like where you're from, or like, but you can tell I'm getting too unconventional. Like maybe there's like maybe you don't want to probably get needles involved, but like tell you what blood type you are by touching the pricks. I don't know, obviously, but like, I feel like there's so much fun that's to be had.
There is loads of fun.
Yeah.
I think you look at the original example, I think, which everyone sort of sees in the advertising world, is BA. So BA it was in Piccadilly. How real it was, I'm not sure, but it was, a plane was flying over and there was a picture of a kid and he's pointing at the plane saying, "This is BA 702 from Gatwick to Heathrow from Thingy."
Wicked, yeah.
How legitimate it was, I'm not sure, but it's a brilliant idea, and it's clever, it's creative, and it's cool. But I think the best one we did, I didn't do it personally, but it was about 5 years ago, and it solved a really good problem. So it's a bit of a boring answer here, but it was for Hiscox. So cyber insurance, and they wanted to raise awareness of cyber security and cyber insurance in London. And you take that brief, you're like, okay, this is a bit of a difficult one, because it's a bit of a boring subject. It's important, but no one wants to talk about it. So what we did was, we picked, let's say, 10 digital screens, big digital screens in the likes of Canary Wharf, a few scattered around London. We built a fake server. And essentially the fake server at the billboard was inviting in cyber attacks.
Right.
And what it was doing is, live on the screen in full motion, it was telling you how many cyber attacks it received in real time.
That is genius.
And it was genius because it was in the tens of thousands, and every time it got attacked, a little red dot would appear on this little map. And it was absolutely genius because it was like 1, 2, 3, and the ticker was going up and up and up. And you're like, oh, actually, we're getting attacked 10,000 times a day. This is how important it is. And it took months. It won. I think we entered it into.
And it was legit. It wasn't like
legit. No,
programs.
all legit. Yeah, all legit. I think we entered it into Cannes Lions Awards. I can't remember if we won, but it was a brilliant, cool, creative idea for something that was a bit boring. Let's face it. But yeah, again, the possibilities are completely endless. People do live streaming on digital out-of-home advertising. You can do 3D. AR, VR, experiential, brand to hand, whatever you want, you can do it these days. And yeah, it's just a bit, for marketers as well, it's just challenging, be a bit braver in this sort of day and age.
That's amazing. Right, 7 minutes. Do I brave with one more question?
Yeah, get one more question.
Well, no, Well, I'm going to ask you now, do you have a question for the next guest? Like, I sort of speak, obviously, ABM Answers community is just all marketers, B2B marketers. That example you just give, I think I give to every cyber marketer, but do you have a question that you want me to ask the next guest?
I think I'll stick it with billboards, because I'll be stupid not to. I think
Sense.
you can, okay, if you had a billboard for a few weeks in the middle of London, what would you put on it and why?
I mean, that's. I'm going to ask a few people that.
Yeah,
a ton of answers. Right. What haven't we covered, Mike? What is there? Is there anything that you want to cover? I mean, I've also, like, if the sky was the limit in terms of budget for you, like, how would you spend it? That's a good question to ask.
I think, yeah, there's an interest. I think because if I was to spend, I don't mind digital billboards, hopefully one day, with the land, well, hopefully own a bit of the land and build screens myself and sell them, because it's been a nice sort of journey over the last 10 years, because I've gone from selling the screens, sort of buying them for clients and planning it, and now I'm selling it. It makes that sort of full circle a lot easier. But again, I don't know if you find it in your industry as well, there is such a London bubble, and if you get out of London a bit, like, the world is a massive place. So one of our big things this year is to expand internationally, and that's not to build billboards in Dubai or Milan or whatever. It's to try and get international clients over advertising into London. And we visited Dubai a few weeks ago, and it's really interesting because you're dealing with different cultures, different people, different ways of working. And so, for example, we were trying to talk to someone like the tourist boards over in Saudi and UAE, and they work very differently. They like selecting the biggest, largest things, unlimited budgets. They want the shiniest stuff. They pick it. The detail probably really doesn't matter as much to them. But then when you're talking to a client in China, that works very different as well. So, as I said, I think the sort of, if money was no object, then it will be just to sort of create a global out-of-home billboard empire, essentially. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's
like SimCity, but in real life.
Exactly,
basically.
Yeah.
That's class, man.
But as I said, yeah, it is when you're sort of been working in London for the last, I don't know, for 12, 13 years now, and once you get out of the M25 bubble, so there is a big world out there.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
What do you find coolest about billboards? Chuck it on you.
Oh, what, for me personally?
Yeah.
No, I think, like I said, the experiential element of it, I think it's unusual. The one example I didn't think about is of what you said, of like, if you're hosting a lot of, like, a small B2B intimate dinner and everyone came out and they saw their name up in lights on the billboard, phenomenal use case. That's why I was asking about the drone. It's like, you got the XL conference theatre. Imagine all those people coming out and you've hijacked it, because obviously it has to be somewhat at night, I think, with drones, or like you've got portable, like full 360 start, you can almost hijack an audience.
Exactly that, and
that way.
It's really key, because XL Centre, fun enough, is one of the biggest, it's one of the most recurring briefs we get.
I mean, there's Covenant billboards inside as well.
Yeah, they've got people that sell the screens inside, but sporting events as well. So again, if you're an alcohol company but you don't have the money to spend millions on sponsorships to get into, let's say you want to target Arsenal fans as an example, big up Arsenal, but if you don't have the millions of pounds to become a partner and a sponsorship or for advertising on the perimeter boards or be an official lager provider, what you could do is, which we've done before, is stick a digital billboard van. You can do those as 3D as well. Stick them outside on the main road between Arsenal Tube Station and the Emirates Stadium, and you've hit tens of thousands of your audience in the right mindset, in the right place, and it's very cost efficient. Like, these things
hopefully
cost.
If they won.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it is. There's so many sort of clever tactics you can do to pick an audience. Like, I don't know, you're trying to target big banks in London, project a massive thing on the opposite building, or get someone with a billboard. You can get people, they're called ad walkers, people with billboards in their back, standing in front of their offices and walking around.
Oh yeah, what are the human rights stuff? Have we got any? Oh,
Unfortunately, run out of time.
I've always wondered that, because that still happens in Guildford.
But again, back to sort of the main point, and sort of, I don't end on negative, but people need to. Common sense is such a big factor here. Is being a bit bullshit, thinking about the idea a bit more, and it's less. What I want to say is less copy and paste from agencies, from marketers, and less going, right, here's my TV plan from last year, here's my out of home plan from last year, it worked, let's do it again. It's no, let's do something cool, let's push the brand guidelines a little bit and be a bit bullshit.
Well, I think it's the only way it's going to stand out, especially with AI taking over. We didn't even get to AI, maybe that's season 2.
Yeah.
Right, there's a camera there. I don't know if you want to promote London Light. How can people find you, reach out to you?
You can find us on our website, londonlights.co.uk.
That's LITES, right?
LITES. So yeah, London Lights digital billboard advertising. We've got all our screens on there, so have a little look. But you'll see them knocking around the likes of Tooting, Balham, Notting Hill. We've also got a screen on Oxford Circus on Oxford Street as well. The Flannel Store on Oxford Street, 37 HD full motion screens. Go see it. It's really cool. But yeah,
ask for Mike as well.
Ask for Mike
Best
English.
rates.
There we go.
Best rates in
But
London.
no, that's us really. So, but yeah, love working there. It's about sort of 15, 20 of us at the moment. Smaller company. We're growing. It's brilliant.
Nice, man. Well, thanks very much
Happy
for
days.
coming.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
Right, sounds. I don't know how we end
Perfect.
this.
We end on that. Clap.
Yeah, we're over. Well, I think that went all right.
Yeah.
Flying.